All right, so you have the son of a former dictator. I mean, Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos are notorious. And you have the vice presidential frontrunner being the daughter of the current president, who is absolutely notorious. His government accused of widespread extrajudicial killings. What is happening? Why?
Well, it's important to see that these two political dynasties are very much intertwined. Duterte's father served in the cabinet of Marcos Sr. As you said, Sara Duterte, the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte, the current president, is now the running mate of Marcos. And really, I mean, together they represent a particular element of the Philippine elite that has kind of cast itself as being somehow not elite, somehow rebelling against the kind of, the sort of the forces represented by the challengers like Lenin Robredo, that they are there to be the big man to try and fix the problems, the deep structural political and economic problems of the Philippines, whether that's to do with poverty, lack of land reform, various kinds of inequality and so forth. So there's a kind of iconoclasm to both these figures. And as I say, these two dynasties are intertwined and go back a long way through history.
So how have this pair tried to set themselves apart from the crimes and alleged crimes of their families? And with the Marcos family, for example, still owing the country some $4 billion, do people who support them just not care about that?
Well, as your report implied, there's been this kind of extraordinary propaganda campaign by the Marcoses, and they've been very savvy about using social media and memes and little short, sharp, impactful videos in order to try and cast themselves in a positive light, in order to revise history and try to make people forget about the horrific repressions of the Marcos Sr. era. In terms of this sort of unaccounted for money, the Ferdinand Marcos and Imelda Marcos may have embezzled up to $11 billion. And a lot of it was spirited away abroad. And while this is obviously a problem for the Philippines, a domestic problem that, that successive politicians and lawyers have tried to deal with for many, many years, it's a problem that has connections to the outside world as well. We have to understand that there's a certain amount of complicity amongst the Western governments. And I have a story in an article about this in Declassified UK today. And in that, I look at the fact that, at the height of his powers, Marcos Sr. had a property portfolio worth $350 million in New York alone. The Marcoses had investments in properties and companies all over the rest of the United States, in Europe, in the United Kingdom, from where I'm speaking to you today. They laundered money in Hong Kong, and there was a total reluctance, really. And as I say, these declassified documents that I've laid my hands on from the British government show that the Foreign Office and the Department of Trade and Industry were very reluctant to actually try to help recover this missing money. And had they been able to recover some of that missing money, then maybe some of these taxes would have been paid back and we wouldn't be having this conversation. I think it's also really important to say that this kind of Western support for Philippine corruption and tyranny continues up until today. This is not ancient history. And there's a link back to Duterte here as well, because since 2016, despite a lot of elements of the sort of British punditocracy and diplomatic and political elites condemning Duterte rightly for this so-called drug war, which has really just been a campaign of extrajudicial killing that has killed maybe up to 30,000 people.
Oh, wow.
There's a double standard there, because the British government has been selling weapons to Duterte worth £93 million since he came to power. The Americans and EU countries have been doing the same thing. So the problems of the Philippines obviously need to be dealt with domestically, but they have causes that stretch out to the international community too, I would argue.
Tom Sykes, your insights on this add so much to the story. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.